Hey everyone, how are you? Welcome back to Griffin MTG. Today's deck tech is about mono red burn. So the burn deck in Pauper is a very fast deck. It's very powerful. It's very explosive. I have three gameplays that I want to share with you guys. So first of all, I'm going to do this deck tech, and then I'll upload three other videos for the matches, the three matches that I played with this deck, and I really learned a lot during those matches. Things that I already knew, but I forgot. Things like using Fire Blast at the right moment is very, very important. Don't use it um, before you have to, because then you'll end up having less mana, and you could cast multiple burn spells and then Fire Blast your opponent for the win if you wait on the Fire Blast. So that's just a quick tip for you guys. And today's deck tech is basically me explaining my take, my vision on this really, really powerful deck in Pauper. Okay, so without any more further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm running four Fire Blasts. I'm running um, four Screw to Critics, four Rift Bolts. Okay, only three Searing Blazes. I I'm not a fan of the Searing Blaze card. It's a very powerful card. I'm aware that if you're able to get a Searing Blaze in there with the landfall, you can get way ahead of your opponent because I mean you're taking away one of his creatures, and at the same time you're going to progress your own game by dealing damage to the opponent. So I know it's a really, really good card. I mean, I had to cut one, I guess, just so I can fit everything in here. Um, but I am not an original fan of Searing Blaze. I would use maybe one or two main deck. I'm testing three to see how it goes. Um, I mean, sometimes four is the best way to go if you're going against decks that have a lot of creatures, and so creatures are not good. Um, Creatures are actually really good against burns, so it's a clock that they have on the table, and if you're taking out their creatures, you're not dealing damage to the opponent directly, and that's what you want to do, deal damage to the opponent directly. But if your opponent casts a whole bunch of creatures, you're gonna have to make some really, really hard choices, and Searing Blaze kind of levels that out for you. It makes it a lot easier for you to take away the creature and at the same time deal damage to your opponent. But then again, it needs to meet the condition of landfall in order for you to deal um, the maximum damage that the card can do, which is three. Okay. Now, speaking of maximum damage, it's always good having out Thermal Alchemist before you cast anything, basically. So if you open a hand with Thermal Alchemist in it and maybe a few Rift Bolts or something, I would suggest not to turn one suspend the Rift Bolt because you can always get more value off of that if you cast the Rift Bolt with the Thermal Alchemist in play. So you'll be doing a lot more damage that way. Okay, so some people prefer using Thermal Alchemist and the Gitu Lava Runner. The Lava Runner is a really good card as well. So let me put him over here. He's a really good creature as well for the burn deck because he has haste and he gets +1, turning them into 2/2 if there are two or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard. So, um, you know, it's a 2/2 haster. You play him, you attack with him. It's pretty good if you can get the damage in, or if you can get a block off of him and maybe trade. That'll get you some time to, make an extra draw. You'll get an extra draw, and that extra draw can be that bolt that you needed to close out the game and win. Um, I'm testing him out. I really like him. Uh, I've also used a version where I do not use the Lava Runner, and in his place, I use the Firebrand Archer, which is this one right here. It's kind of like a Thermal Alchemist 2/1, but basically, the difference here is that um, Thermal Alchemist, you can actually tap him, cast something, untap him, and then tap him again, dealing a total of what, 3, 4, 5 damage per bolt. So that's really good. Now, with the Firebrand Archer, per bolt you can only do 4 damage maximum because she does not have the tap effect. But her effect is very similar to that of the Thermal Alchemist because for every non-creature spell you cast, you deal 1 damage. In his case, for every instant or sorcery, if you cast the curse of the Pierced Heart, while Thermal Alchemist is in play, then that will not trigger his untap effect, but it will trigger the damage that she deals to your opponent. So, she's pretty good. She's not the best. Thermal Alchemist is actually way better than she is, in my opinion. It defends um, your opponent's creatures, your opponent's 2/2 creatures, really, really well since it's a 0/3. And it keeps pinging your opponent. It keeps dealing damage to your opponent. Now, the Firebrand Archer is really good to against those decks that don't have many blockers, so you can go ahead and just attack with her and deal damage, and then cast stuff and deal more damage, and just get the game over with as quickly as possible. Which is what this deck really is aiming to do, is just to finish the game as quick as possible. Um, so every burn deck wants to deal damage in any way possible so that the game can end quickly and your opponent has no time to react to what you're doing. So basically that's what you want to do. And I've tried using her instead of Gitu. Here it is. The Lava Runner. So I used her in its place. I'm not sure how to say his the name of the card, Gaitu, Gitu. I don't know, I just say it however I think it is. But anyways, um, I've had a Thermal Alchemist and a Firebrand in play at the same time, and it was freaking awesome. Just imagine casting a Lava Spike, dealing 6 damage, because you're gonna deal 3, 4, 5, 2 off of Thermo, and then 1 off of Firebrand. And then you can even attack with her if your opponent doesn't have any blockers. It's 8 damage. It's pretty good. So anyway, those are the creatures. Okay, so basically 4 lava runners, 4 thermal alchemists, um, 3 blaze. Okay, I also use 3 curse. I'm not using 4. It is a really, really, really good card. Am I not using 4? Let me see. 1, 2, 3. No, I'm not using 4. It is a really good card. Curse of the Pierced Heart. If you play this against the control deck, then it's just gonna eat them away one by one until they don't know how they died. Because Curse of the Pierced Heart just it keeps dealing that damage. If you get 2 in there, then you've probably already won the game against a control deck that takes a long time to set up. So I usually side this out against aggro decks. Um, I don't like using Curse of the Pierced Heart against decks with a lot of creatures because it's not enough pressure to go against an aggressive deck. There's really no time for Curse of the Pierced Heart to do what it's meant to do. So I usually just remove 3 of these and put something else. Um, I'm using 4 needle drops because it helps filter the deck. You get that draw off of the card, and it also deals damage. I mean, we want to deal damage, and I remember that in game 1, uh, I ended up casting this and drawing into a Fire Blast, which won me the game. So that was pretty fun during that game. Now I'm gonna play this game for you guys later. Then I have Lightning Bolt, Lava Spikes, and Chain Lightnings for the rest of the burns in the deck. I'm using 16 mountains and 2 forgotten caves for the cycling. I like to use one only, but I'm trying out two, see how it goes. I like evolving wilds in burn, especially if you use 4 searing blazes, so you can always hold up in evolving wilds or a terramorphic expanse to search for a basic mountain, for example, and play your searing blaze on a creature. Um, so basically, guys, this deck, what you want to do is just draw stuff and cast stuff and get it over with. And preferably cast everything at your opponent so that you have more chances of closing out the game and winning. Now for the sideboard, I am using two electricries for the sideboard, and one flaring pane. Um, some people use more flaring panes. I'd rather use just one. I mean, if you draw it, you drew it. If you don't, you don't. Um, your opponent is probably gonna try to prevent some damage here or there, but Flame Plane is really good against those decks that prevent damage, so I use at least one. Uh, I forgot the name of the white card that prevents damage and has the flashback, and this is really good against that, the one that Boros Monarch uses. So this is really good for that. Two Electricries against creature decks um, like elves, for example, or slivers if you get it early enough. Even boggles, it can get rid of the boggles. And electric tree is really good because you can do it in response to anything. So it's an instant. So you can just do it in response to anything your opponent does, making him lose a lot more for one of your cards. Um, so I'm using two of these, and although it doesn't get rid of the two twos, it does get rid of flying 1/1s and basically 1/1 creatures and um, elves, slivers, boggles, things like that. I think Soul Sisters has a few 1/1s as well. Keldon Marauders is the one you want to see against almost anything, basically. I have tried a version with him in the main deck, and it's not bad. It's not a bad version for Keldons. Um, the thing is with Keldon Marauder, he's gonna deal damage, whether you like it or not, because when he comes into play, he's gonna deal one, and when he leaves play, he's also gonna deal one damage. Color Marauder is awesome to pressure your opponent if he has no blockers. If he does have blockers, if you see that you're going against Stompy or you know 1/1s and 2/2s or even 3/3s, you can put him in there and just block stuff or put the pressure on him. Because if you attack, they're either gonna have to block and he becomes basically a removal, or your opponent's gonna have to take the damage, and that's what you want as well. So Kaladin Marauders is a really good card for this deck, all in all. He's in the sideboard for now. I guess because of the mana cost, you want to be really quick with this deck and just cast everything for 1 mana. When you have to, just put him in there. He'll do what he has to do. He's really good against control decks, and um, you know, if people are killing your Thermal Alchemist and your Lava Runners or your Firebrands, go ahead and take them out. Put in Keldon Marauder and put in the Marauders and some other thing, and you will do well because you will be dealing damage. Smash the Smithereens is another card that will put your opponent. Um, yeah, it'll delay your opponent a lot since it destroys their artifact. So if it's a very artifact dependent deck, you will destroy an artifact and your opponent's going to take three on top of all of that. So it advances your game and it delays your opponent's game, and this is an excellent card to have in burn. Um, Of course, doesn't kill, doesn't destroy any enchantments, but it does get rid of a lot of really good artifacts that a lot of people are using. So if you go against Affinity, or if you go against Boros Monarch, use, he, that deck uses a lot of artifacts as well. Um, Tron might use some interesting artifacts for mana fixing that you might want to destroy. So Smash the Smithereens is a four of. It has to be a four of in this deck, in my opinion, because it's just really good. Um, Molten Rain. Molten Rain is a four of in here because you want to see that. You really want to see this card turn three on that third mana so that you can set your opponent back by destroying his lands. Now, if you destroy a non-basic land, he's gonna take two damage. That's gonna up your game a little bit. Two is not three, but you're destroying the dude's land, and you're like, you're destroying your opponent's land, and um, you're also dealing damage. The deck wants to deal damage. It needs to deal damage in order to win, and that's what you want to do here. Set your opponent back and at the same time deal damage. So, uh, you a lot of people are using the bounce lands. So bounce land turn one or two or whatever, and on your turn three, you can just destroy that bounce land, setting your opponent way back, getting you so much time, and time in the burn deck is so valuable because each draw that you get is basically three damage to your opponent's face if you're lucky enough. So all you really have to do is cast seven burn spells that deal three damage. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 21 damage. And so that's basically what you want to do in the burn deck. Just cast stuff as fast as possible so that you can get the game over with. And Molten Raid is here to help you do that, to help you gain time and deal damage at the same time. At the same time, okay? So yeah, this is basically the deck tech for the deck. Um, a lot of people are asking me why I don't use Martyr of Ashes. Um, well, I don't use her first of all because I don't have her on Magic Online yet. I would probably use one or two, probably. I really don't like her since she's not dealing damage to the opponent. Does she do damage to the opponent? I'm not sure. I don't remember now. But anyways, the main reason that um, I didn't buy the card or that I'm not using it is because I like to do things. I like to cast things, and I like for the things that I cast to resolve at that moment, right when I cast it. That's why I hate the card that I hate the most is the Rift Bolt because it takes a turn, and taking a turn gives your opponent time to think and opportunity to draw a better card and to get ahead of you. Um, so Martyr of Ashes, you're gonna have to cast her for one, and then her ability is two mana, so you're gonna have to pay three mana in order to have full access to her abilities. In order for you to do everything she needs to do at the time she comes into play, you're gonna have to spend three mana on that. And um, I want to avoid casting three mana stuff. So if I, it, although I do have Molten Rain, I mean, there's too much Tron going on. So I mean, I have to use this. And even though I know it makes no difference, but it deals the damage. If it gets in there, if it destroys the land, it deals the damage, and it forces them to maybe Ghostly Flicker or something right there and then. So um, I really like using Molten Rain because of the damage that it does as well as the setback. And I would probably remove one of these for Martyr of Ashes since I already use the Electricities and the Searing Blazes. So basically that's what I would do. Um, okay, so tell me what you think about the deck tech of the mono red burn. How would you use it? What's your deck like? And I do see myself as a burn player. I play burn in all the formats, modern, legacy, pioneer, and pauper. I still need to buy some pioneer cards for the burn deck, but I really like the deck, and I really like the fact that you can just, you know, play your game without worrying too much about what your opponent is doing. Um, and it's just so fast. This deck is so fast that if you are not ready for it, if you do not gain life, you will lose. You will lose to this deck. I mean, especially if I'm drawing burns instead of land. I mean, the only way you will lose to burn is if the burn player draws a lot of land. Um, in this scenario where you don't gain life or anything, the only other way to lose is if or to beat the burn player is if he draws lots of lands. So, anyways, I really like this deck. I hope you guys do too. And let's go ahead and get into the gameplay. Okay, gonna go ahead and finish up right here and upload the other video. All right. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the gameplay videos. See you later, everybody.